If you want to find out how you can prevent Alzheimer's, just keep watching. If you haven't watched before, welcome to The Wrinkle. I'm Dr. Nicole Diddick. I'm a geriatrician internist. So I'm a medical doctor with extra training and certification in looking after older adults. Here on The Wrinkle, I try to give you medical education that you can use to age well, or to help someone in your life to age well. Today we're going to talk about Alzheimer's disease and how you can prevent it. Now, there's nothing that we know can 100%, absolutely for sure, prevent you from getting Alzheimer's disease. But there are some strategies that will reduce the odds of getting Alzheimer's. We'll talk about things you can do to change your diet, your exercise routine, if there's any supplements that might be helpful, any cognitive activities or puzzles, and other lifestyle factors that'll give you the best odds that you can to have a healthy aging brain. First, let's define Alzheimer's disease. It's the most common cause of dementia or major neurocognitive disorder. So some people want to know what the difference is between Alzheimer's and dementia, but they're actually the same thing. Dementia is the umbrella term, and Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. And unfortunately, age is the biggest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's. If you have a family history of Alzheimer's, that also increases your risk. But your age and your family history aren't things that you can change. So what can you change if you don't want to get Alzheimer's? Well, let's start by talking about what you eat, your diet. There are many diets that are proposed to be good for brain health. Let me show you some examples. So these are just two of the many, many books that have been written about how to eat properly for your brain health. Honestly, I couldn't even finish this one. When she started talking about why you should breathe through your left nostril for optimal brain health, I just couldn't keep going, but it might be a great book. But this one I did read, and this was actually recommended to me by one of my patients. It's all about lifestyle change, but a lot of it focuses on diet. So I'll come back to this, but what diet should you eat if you want to prevent Alzheimer's? Well, the one that we recommend the most is the MIND diet, M-I-N-D. It's a combination of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, which is a low-salt diet that was designed for treating hypertension and subsequently reducing the risk of having a stroke or heart attack. On the MIND diet, you would eat less of some things and more of others. Most of us kind of know what a Mediterranean diet is, but it would include things like eating whole grains a couple times a day, eating green leafy vegetables at least once a day, eating more things like beans, legumes, which are things like beans, and also eating nuts. It would mean replacing the butter in your diet with a healthier source of fat, like an olive oil, for example, and avoiding red meat, so eating poultry and fish a couple of times a week. Eating red meat maybe just once or twice a month, and only eating modest amounts of things like cheese and pastry, which I confess is one of my weaknesses. Also on the MIND diet, they recommend drinking a glass of wine a day, about 4 ounces. And if you don't want to drink red wine, you could drink grape juice instead. On this plan, you would also try to avoid salt, seasoning your food with herbs and spices instead, which can be a lot of fun and tasty. Eating the MIND diet very strictly reduces the risk of Alzheimer's, it seems, from the scientific studies that I've looked at. And one of these studies had about 1,000 participants. Even adhering to the MIND diet moderately well may seem to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. So the MIND diet is one that I think is practical, easy to follow, or easier to follow. You don't have to buy any really fancy foods. And in fact, you might save some money on your bill at the butcher's. Now, if you've read this book and you want to try the Bredesen diet, because this was developed by Dr. Dale Bredesen, it's a much stricter type of plan. It includes eating a ketone or ketosis-inducing diet, which is very low in carbohydrates, for example, and does use medium chain triglycerides as the main source of fat. It also involves some cognitive training exercises and physical exercise. The principles in this diet, I think, are okay. I think, reading this book, he provides a really good rationale of why he's making those recommendations. The data that I saw to back this up, though, was a sort of a case series of about 10 people who had followed this plan. They were mostly middle-aged people in their 40s to 60s, and they had received a diagnosis of dementia, but Alzheimer's or mild cognitive impairment, actually, but they weren't having severe symptoms. They were followed for 10 months of following the diet, and they did have some reported or subjective improvement in their memory performance. So that's very promising, but it isn't at the level of scientific data that I would need to be able to strongly recommend this type of plan to all of my patients. Again, though, it may be that following this plan somewhat could still have some benefits. So if it's of interest to you, I don't see anything that's necessarily harmful in this diet. I just think it would be hard to follow exactly to the letter. And many people have asked me about it, so that's just why I'm talking about it today. But the Mind Diet is what I recommend, or some form of it that fits with your lifestyle. Try to do your best most of the time. Now, what about exercise? We hear a lot about physical activity, and we all know that it's good for us, but is it good for your brain? Well, yes. It seems that in the short term, there is improvement in brain performance. So even short bursts of activity increase the activity of the hippocampus, at least in rats, but we probably could extrapolate that to other mammals. And it does seem to help with cognitive performance as well. We know that exercise releases positive chemicals, so anti-inflammatory chemicals and cytokines, as well as things like brain-derived neurotropic factor. So all of those chemicals are really important for optimal brain health. So exercise can release those. But it's not just in the short term. It appears that those who exercise more have a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's. So if we look at people who exercise, those who exercise more throughout midlife tend to have a lower risk of Alzheimer's. Now you'll notice I'm just saying exercise. I'm not saying which exercise or how often, how vigorously. We just don't have the specific data to say anything about that. So I can't tell you to join a curling club or a ski club. Either one of those activities are probably good, but dance could also be good. And same thing with walking and yoga. So physical activity, I think the thing about it is that it's important to just do it and commit to doing it regularly. Do something that you like so that you are going to do it more often. And try to think about the other benefits of exercise, not just the brain benefits. We know that physical exercise helps with mood and with sleep. And both of those things can improve brain function as well. Doing physical activity is more likely to give you an easier time in the bathroom. So if you have constipation, physical activity will help with that. And it can also help to regulate your appetite. Physical activity can improve bone health and reduce your risk of breaking a bone. And depending on the type of activity that you do, you can improve your strength and balance and flexibility as well. It could also be something that you do socially. And it seems like building social connections is good for brain health. So there's so many benefits to exercise, not just those that directly affect the brain. A lot of people ask me about any particular cognitive exercise that they can do to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. So there are things like my personal favorite, crossword puzzles, but also Sudoku, not my fave. There's all kinds of computer programs that are designed to improve brain health and so on. It's not clear that there's any one particular type of activity that can help to reduce the risk of dementia. Now, most of these activities have been shown to improve certain aspects of brain performance in the short term. So if you are doing Sudoku, the more you do it, you can get better at Sudoku. Or if you're, doing a particular memory-related task or something, practicing that, you could improve your scores and you could get better at that. But it's not clear that that translates into a reduced risk of dementia, or even that being better at a certain type of puzzle or activity will make you better at managing your day-to-day life. And most of the time, when it comes to things to do with the brain, we're looking for ways to improve how your brain serves you in terms of your day-to-day function. So being able to do day-to-day things like follow a recipe, balance your checkbook, and drive. I always say that the best kind of brain activity to do is one that involves other people. It seems that people who tend to have more well-developed social networks also seem to have a lower risk of dementia. So if you want to do a brain activity, then do it with other people. If you can find a way to do that in a socially distanced way, that would be good right now. But and there are lots of things that you can do over a video screen and still be social. But when we get back to doing things face to face, I'm hoping that people will get back into doing some of those card games and other fun things that they can do to tease their brain and spend some time with friends. What supplements should you take for your brain health? A lot of people want to know what supplements they should take for brain health. And we've all heard in the media that there are quite a few things that have been recommended to help your brain. Some of them have fancy names and are a mixture of a bunch of different vitamins, or you might hear about just one or two different compounds in particular. So it might be things like ginseng or ginkgo biloba, turmeric, N-acetylcysteine, vitamin B12, vitamin D, vitamin E, and so on, the whole alphabet. There isn't any supplement that will help reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. I repeat, there is not any supplement that will help reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. There's no vitamin, there's no mineral, there's no special drink that will do that. If you have a vitamin deficiency or poor nutrition, well, obviously correcting that will help your brain health. So if you have a low vitamin B12, you should take a B12 supplement. But if your B12 level is normal, taking more will not do any good. And that's true of all the other nutrients and minerals that are found in the body. Unfortunately, the downside of taking supplements can be that it can be burdensome to people to have to just swallow more pills every day. And it can also cost a lot of money. So before you invest in any kind of a dietary supplement, think twice and ask your doctor or pharmacist about it. And finally, what are some of the other lifestyle things that you can do? So we've talked about diet, exercise, cognitive activities, and supplements, but there's other things about your lifestyle that'll reduce your risk of Alzheimer's as well. Choosing not to smoke is really important, and getting adequate rest and managing your stress level is important too. You notice that as we talked about diet and exercise, we pointed out that all of the things that you do in terms of eating a healthy diet or doing regular exercise has benefit for your blood vessels and your heart. They can also help you to manage your blood sugars better. Even if you don't have diabetes, it can reduce things like insulin resistance. So trying to do things that are heart healthy will be brain healthy too. Alcohol is okay in moderation, as I mentioned, but drinking a lot of alcohol is not recommended for brain health. And neither is smoking cannabis or doing other what we would call recreational drugs. Prescription drugs can be hard on the brain also. So every once in a while, as we're getting older, it's good to talk to your pharmacist about whether or not the meds that you're on can have any deleterious brain side effects. And if they do, maybe you could stop them or use something else with a different side effect profile. Protect your brain. Wear a helmet when you go rollerblading or do other kinds of activities that could lead to a head injury. I hope that this video has been helpful. There's nothing that will magically prevent Alzheimer's in everybody. And some people who follow all of these healthy guidelines, unfortunately, will still develop Alzheimer's. But maybe they'll develop it later in life than they would if they weren't living in a healthier way. Or maybe they'll have a more gentle form of it. But either way, following these guidelines will help you to be healthy with respect to your heart and your blood vessels, and it'll just feel good. I'm so glad you could join me for this video today, and I would invite you to stick around here on YouTube and watch another one of my videos. But you can also go to my website at thewrinkle.ca. I have all of my videos there, as well as blog articles and lots of other fun things. You can leave a comment below this video or on my website. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and there's lots of ways to interact there. I'm on Instagram too. I'm just so happy you joined me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time on The Wrinkle.